Hey YouTube, this is Zach with Achilles Financial, and we are back with some stock picks to go into the rest of this week. We are going to be looking at Uber and Lyft today, two very similar companies that are reporting earnings later this week. We've got Lyft tomorrow after the bell and Uber on Thursday after the bell. And the key moves that we saw today, we saw both Uber and Lyft have a bit of an uplift today. Again, minor increase after hours. Uber had a nice jump during the day. If we look at the weekly trend line, you can see that we're seeing some recovery. The big jump today and following the rest of the broader market lower is strictly based on following the broader market. I don't think that Uber has any necessary excitement over its forward-looking mindset right now, because as they go into earnings this week, it is not going to be pretty. You're talking about social distancing, and the two largest ride-sharing apps both did not have great quarters in terms of what they saw in volume of riders on their platforms. So the big one with Uber that everyone's asking about is, hey, what about Uber Eats? Surely that's seen a huge increase, and while that has been a huge value add center for them in terms of branding and getting people on the app, this is a cost center for them. They have not been making a profit on their Uber Eats. That's why they've been selling it in other countries. So I don't see a huge revenue generating source there. I do not think earnings are going to be pretty. So why are we addressing this? As you look at the broader market over the past 3 months, the one thing I would note is on April 3rd is when their CEO came out and said they had plenty of cash on hand to survive the coronavirus pandemic. So they are set from that perspective. So what does that mean? I think that after earnings, once we see that additional decrease, again, we're riding that market volatility. I think the expectation is we're going to get a really good view of what Uber stock is going to do after Lyft announces earnings. So after we see what happens with Lyft, we can make the Uber play. Now, I am not opposed to looking at Uber, watching it go down, and then seeing the unemployment numbers later this week, watching it go down again, and then buying in. Uber is positioned to where they will be able to come out of the pandemic as a strong company. As people start to ramp up, they are going to start using ride-sharing services again. You see some of the larger state economies have announced plans to open up, with Texas, California, and New York all starting to phase in plans during this month. So they are going to see an increase. Also, Uber Eats, they now have a lot more users on there. I think that people are still going to be hesitant to go out. We aren't going to have a lot of massive events, so there is still going to be a balancing play. Do I think that in the next 3 months we're going to see Uber at $40 a share? Not necessarily. However, I don't think they're far away from the $35 a share play, and I can see that happening by the end of this year. This is not going to be a get-rich-quick stock to hold if you're looking for them to shoot up to $40 a share again after all this gets announced. However, if you're looking for a flip or a trade, what you can do is see how Lyft performs tomorrow and then trade based off of that. And I do think that this is a good long-term stock to hold, as well as if we look at the options. I personally wouldn't want to play off the numbers this week. The reason for that is, again, the unemployment numbers later this week. However, if you look at some of the June contracts, which I really do like some of those, if we're looking at the mid-June contracts, I think you can get a deal here if we're looking at $186 right here for June 30, or rather the June 19th call here at $30. I really like what that looks like, and I think that that is an awesome number to be able to go in on and hold for the long term. Again, still a lot of volatility. So this is what we're looking at for Uber. I do want to highlight Lyft as well, because I think they're also in a similar boat. I don't think that they have as strong of a financial standing as Uber, but you can see that they're trading in tandem with one another. So you can expect that there's going to be a play going on with Uber at the same time that Lyft announces earnings tomorrow after the bell. So they have had a little bit more volatility over the past week. That is strictly going with the statements that they've been making in terms of, hey, we are not doing well, we're having to lay people off. Today, both Lyft and Uber are having to deal with a lawsuit from the state of California. Again, that's pretty common with what they've had to deal with, a lot of negative headlines. I like the Uber play better than Lyft. I think they're better positioned to come out of this stronger. That does not mean that we don't have value in Lyft. But you can see that Uber had the strong day throughout the entire day and they finished in the positive. Lyft was hit by the broader market pull down at the end of the hours going into closing. So we're going to see a lot of expectations riding on tomorrow's call or tomorrow's earnings call. And I think that the guidance there is going to be key for Lyft. So if we look at the trade Lyft options, you can see that, again, I'm going to look at the exact same time period, June 19th. Look how much more expensive these options are than what we were just looking at. So this is the same type of play, but the option is a lot more expensive. So there's a lot more optimism surrounding this. I think a lot of that is already bought into the fact that they've already seen that decrease and they think that it's already been priced in from an earnings perspective. So my personal play is let's look at Lyft tomorrow and then buy in on Uber, whether it's calls or whether it is the actual stock. We'll see. So those are my plays. Let me